My name is Netta Dowdell. I'm a wife, a mom, a business owner, GSCW. I am a podcaster, and I am a travel vlogger. Follow us and subscribe to our channel. New episodes go up every Tuesday and Thursday by 6 p.m. Thank you. So, guys, welcome into our episode on Teaching Transitions podcast, where we show you people that have moved from their traditional career path to a path that serves them best. How are you today, Jamel?
What's up, Miss D, Coach D, however you want. What do you go by these days?
I'm gonna go by Netta. I'm
Okay.
I'm just I'm just go by Netta. I had a little bit of transition in my life too, so a couple of things that I had to figure out along the way. But let's get into you because this is not about me. How are you today?
I am doing great. It's great to be in front of you again today. Our story is really it's amazing. Like as I think about like where we were when we started this journey so many years ago together and where
Yeah.
life has taken us now, it's really exciting to be here and to join you on this podcast.
Yes. So for those of you out there watching it, we actually recorded this before and I thought recording was on, they have like a button at the bottom and then they also have recording in the corner and all of that, but I still got it wrong. So Terrell was like, all right, we can do it next week. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So I get to hear your story again, but then others are able to hear your story for the first time. And we have a lot of intersections, or especially like where we started. So let's get into it. What do you do? What is your accomplishments right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I have been blessed to really come into this education space and just and hit it from all different kind of angles. Like it's just really weird how my life has taken a different trajectory. So fast forward to I went to law school, had these ambitions and dreams of becoming a corporate attorney, and that's what I saw myself doing. Got to law school and just totally had a different perspective about what I wanted to do with my life. So I joined TFA, taught, and the rest is history. Walking into that classroom the very first day, I knew that that's what my life was supposed to be. So now I'm a policy manager and external relations manager for the Education Trust, which is a nonprofit located in DC. And our goal is to fight for inequities or fight against inequities that occur in public policy as it relates to education. So we fight on behalf of students of color and students from low income backgrounds. I'm also an elected official in the city of Baton Rouge. I'm on the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. We have over 40,000 students in our school district. And so,
Wow.
yeah, education policy is what I do and what I've just enjoyed thus far. And that's kind of where I am today on my journey in life and career wise.
So you've kind of intertwined this information that you got from getting a JD and then education and kind of brought them together for this role. Was there something in getting your JD that really stood out as something that you wanted to focus on and going into your new life, something that you felt like more of a spark toward and going forward?
Yeah, so I think for me, many people think that when you get a law degree, like they try to put you in a box. So, like when my
Mhm.
life went a different way from my classmates who sat for multiple bars, who decided to be like ADAs and BAs and start their own firms, like people was like, well, what are you doing with your degree? And I'm like, actually, like a JD is such a universal degree that it really prepares you for a lot of intersections of careers. So if you go and see a lot of executive directors and CEOs of many white scale companies, lots of them have JDs. And so for me, I knew that going to law school would be beneficial, even if I decided to go the non-traditional route. Going into law school, I thought I would go the traditional route, be a courtroom attorney. But when I got there, I was just learning so much about myself, about people, and just the different impacts that you can have on people's lives. And so really for me, education came about because I was a student attorney in the student family clinic. And there were so many kids who would come through our clinic with their parents, and I always wonder, like, what's happening with them? Like, how are they experiencing all of these things that their parents are going through, whether it's divorces or whether it's child support or all these
Okay,
different
okay,
things?
okay.
So,
Let's stop right there. This clinic. Explain this clinic. What were y'all doing in this clinic? Because when I think of
so
clinic, I think of like healthcare. So what was y'all doing?
So in this particular clinic, we were like student attorneys with real life cases. So Southern Law School really prepares you for what for practicing law. Like we had real life cases where we would go to court on behalf of our clients. So we were literally student attorneys in our clinic. And so it's just like, I mean, I guess when you think about like residency for doctors, like
Yeah.
we were like residents per se in a law clinic. So we had real cases, getting real results, as all of the TV shows like to say. So it was an interesting story, and that's what kind of led me to education.
Awesome, awesome. Now, we have a background in teacher American education and all that. And I know that's what we talked about before, but this interview, I kind of want to pivot into your HBCU experience. So, in going to Southern, I know you're like Southern's number one fan.
I'm
You
glad you
got
know.
your city there, you like travel with the football team, all of that. Let's speak to your HBCU experience because I graduated from a PWI. I I think I almost went to like the homecoming at Southern when I was down there. But it's just a completely different culture. So like walk us through that. What let's say,
Yeah.
yeah, you just go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, growing up, so I grew up, I just actually published a book called The HBC Experience. So check it out on Amazon. It's just a collective of stories of Southern alumni who just kind of got together to tell their story in the form of a book. So HBC Experience on Amazon.
Wow.
But
Wow.
for me, like Southern has been a part of my life since I was a kid. So like I grew up, my neighborhood was right outside the back gates of Southern University. So I could hear the band practice from my home. Like every night during the fall, like you would go outside and just listen to the band. It was just an amazing experience. And I also went to school at Southern Lab, which is a high school that's on the campus of Southern University. And originally, in its original form, was literally built out to train teachers who went to Southern. So Southern has been embedded in my life since I was a little kid. I've been a season ticket holder going to every football game since I was like 1 years old. So everything Southern has always been all I knew. Actually, for undergrad, I branched off and I did go to a PWI. I graduated from UL Lafayette in Lafayette, Louisiana, and then came back to Southern again for law school. And
Yeah.
so Southern is just like, it's just a family environment. It's just so embedded into who I am as a person. Most of my family members went to Southern. I mean, all we ever knew growing up was Southern. Like, if it wasn't Southern, like, it wasn't us. And so if you poke me right now, I still bleed blue and gold. I still, as you say, I go to every football game. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
homecoming. I love Southern. Southern has given so many people an opportunity to access higher education, and I think HBCUs around the world has done that. And so Southern is just a beacon of light, a beacon of hope for people in this community. Because when people in our community couldn't go to schools like LSU and all of these other schools, like Southern opened their doors for them. And so Southern is still serving as a
Yes.
school of opportunity. And so I'm forever grateful for the HBCU experience. I encourage all of my students to just give it a try, and it's forever life changing. Like, so I went to law school there, and even in the professional environment, like I still go to Thanksgiving dinner with my professors from law school. Like, it's an experience that you can't put words behind, but I know that it was worth it. And I know that it's impacted my life forever, and will forever impact my life.
Awesome. That is excellent. And what that really makes me think about is how I used to think about BET. I really don't watch BET anymore, but how I used to think about BET and the amount of people that they would give opportunities to, like hosts and all that, and all the people that started out in their movies, with really B-list movies or C-list movies or whatever, and then after a while they would talk crap about them, like Stacey Dash, right? She was one of the people that started out, really small on B list. And then when she gets to a certain level, kind of looking down on them. So I am forever thankful for those networks that brought those people to us and gave them those opportunities because look, all we need is the opportunity. We are
That's
not
it.
we are not expecting y'all to give us different work. We are not expecting y'all to give us different jobs or whatever, because at the end of the day, we still have to pass the class. So amen to that. You going to an undergrad, at a PWI, a predominantly white institution, and then going to a HBCU for a JD. I'm wondering, do you have a story about your experience um, at, Southern Lab or your JD that paints a really good picture about the difference between the two? So like I was able to, like, I like the band one that you were talking about. But what about
Mhm.
your experience with football? Did you feel more involved or anything?
And I think for me, like I said, like for me, like the story is simple. Like in my house, like growing up at 1 years old, 2 years old, 3 years old, so we live and breathe Southern football. So for me, like while I was a student at UL, I was still coming home to go to Southern football games. It's just
Oh,
because it's
you never
just something
stopped. I
like
thought you were going to their football games.
no. So when I was at UL, I
Not
would
no.
I would I never miss a Southern home game at UL. I still traveled with the football team, even though I would go to like if a UL would play on a Tuesday or a Thursday or like homecoming, I would go to that game. But I was still traveling, and all of my friends at school like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to Baton Rouge this weekend for Southern's game." Like, what do you mean? So like, it was so much bigger than being a student, and I think that that's just the HBCU culture and experience, and like the difference between the two. Like, while there were networks of people at my PWI that I had like connections and circles with,
Right.
then HBCU environment is just a family. It's like you get to go into a place where every single person, entity, well, 99% of the peoples and entities are all black owned, black led, black people in
Right.
power. It's just like, it's like Wakanda forever, like in the sense of a school.
Yes.
It's just to be surrounded by so much black excellence, and no matter how you show up as your authentic black self, like you're received by your people. Like there are a different types of black people. Like everybody think we all one type. Like no, there are different
Right.
types of black people. And when you get involved and surrounded with those kind of people, it's just like a family environment. And so I think that that's the stark difference between the two. Is like whereas you're fighting to fit in and fighting for a seat at tables at PWIs at the HBCU, like the whole room is yours. Like you can walk in and sit at whatever table you desire because it
Yeah.
belongs to us. And so that's really the major difference between the two. Like I have some phenomenal experiences, and I was involved at UL. Like I was a student orientation leader. I worked on like soul camp. Like I did a lot of different things, but like nothing compares to like the upbringing and the family environment that I received from my HBCU, which is why I still donate most of my time and money to my HBCU even after
Right.
graduating, because I just love it so much, and I couldn't imagine where my life would be without the impact that Southern University had on my life.
Yeah, I think that was one of my concerns looking at colleges, like when I was first going into college. And it really played a part into my identity because now I don't value those type of things. But when I was thinking about going into HBCU, I was really like, well, if I'm going to this PWI, I could stand out and I could be that person. But if I go to a HBCU, I might, be a little bit like everyone else. So in my mind and the way that I think now, I'm like, well, maybe you should have done something to stand out. There's still an opportunity to stand out and for you to develop yourself and for you to develop networks. Because I think a lot of the sales points for the PWIs is, oh, you have a great network, you'll do this, you'll do that, you'll come out with a job. And we're all looking around like, baby, where is the job? Where is the job? So, and going into your new reality, working on policy and things like that, how do you show up? What are some of the things that y'all do to show up and make sure that kids are comfortable in being identifying within themselves and being reflective and things of that sort? Does any of your policy connect to that?
Yeah, and so all of our policy. Our mission is about making sure that students of color and students from low income backgrounds have the conditions in place inside of schools and education in order to be successful. So we talk about Black student debt. We talk about school discipline policies. We talk about just parameters that need to be in place to ensure that students of color, students from low income backgrounds are being or having an opportunity to be successful. I mean, because when we think about education as a collective, like education as a system has been built off of white dominant culture and white
Right.
um, supremacy. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, white supremacy has been what has been the conditions in place for students to be quote unquote successful in school. As a society, as Black folks, we have always tried to fit into that culture. So
Right.
we tried to integrate white schools. Like, we did all of these things to fit in, but we did all of these things to fit in into a system that was never designed for us. So it's like getting a custom made suit. Like, if you get a custom made suit and I'm trying to put it on, it's custom for you, and I'm never going to be able to fit it. And so,
Yeah.
like, our job and our like policy has been around how do we make sure that students of color and students of low income backgrounds are represented into this education so that they can have opportunities to be successful just like their counterparts. So we do a lot of comparative analysis data where it's talking about, like, how are Black students performing to their white counterparts, and like what
Yeah.
conditions need to be in place to ensure that Black students have the same opportunities as as other counterparts within the school system. And so our work is rooted in that, and every single day I get up and have the opportunity to make sure conditions are in place for Black students and low income students from low income families to be successful.
Awesome. That makes me think about the different measures that were put in place for like testing, and not just saying that Black and brown students are failing, but comparing them to other Black people of similar socioeconomic backgrounds, and analyzing the data that way. Um, what equitable measures are you guys putting in to make sure these are comparative things? So are you guys checking their environment? Are you guys checking the outcomes? What exactly are you guys looking at in this comparative analysis?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at every single thing. So we have a really good accountability team that works through like what is assessment data saying about the conditions that students are learning in? What is assessment data saying about like just the opportunities that kids have? So a lot of states have put in different metrics as it relates to like really understanding like how do we educate the whole child. So for example, Louisiana is not always top of mind when you think of education, but we
Right.
do now have like a growth index in our accountability system, and it basically allows for you to take kids where they are and then see how schools are actually growing students as opposed to just like an absolute grading scale. We do a lot of work around social emotional learning to make sure that like people are putting things in place to educate the whole child. Right now, we're working on the accountability task force in the state of Louisiana to think about how we can measure growth as a more important part of the score. So like not just saying like, oh, you got this kid from
Right.
whatever to whatever, but like you're actually educating kids. And then on the school board side, like I've been doing a lot of work talking about and trying to help think about ways to implement policies related to like just school culture. Like how
Oh
are
yeah.
people feeling
Oh yeah.
inside of your building? Like I think if we took a step back and like say, forget about the academics for a second, everybody can agree that academics in academic environments is important. But take a step back, talk to your teachers, talk
Mhm.
to your students, and just see how they feel coming inside of your building. And that will really tell you how they're actually performing. Because if a
Yeah.
student doesn't feel good, a teacher doesn't feel good coming into your environment, they're going to leave or they're not going to perform their best. And we know our first year of teaching was amazing. We loved the environment. Every single day we showed up and
Yeah.
we did what we were supposed to do. We went 100% over. But then our second year, there was a shift. And there wasn't just a shift in students, there was a shift in teachers, there was a shift in lead.
Yeah.
Everybody had to
It
shift.
was
And
a
so,
burnout. That's
them,
what it was.
it was just, leadership and things were just, it was just a bad, like, we just did not appreciate the environment. And so, like, I really would like for districts and states and schools to do a better job of like taking account for like how people feel inside of school buildings because everybody wants to talk about academic, academic, academic,
Right.
academic. But let's stop for a moment. If 2020 haven't taught us anything else, it's taught us that there is a dire need to check on people's well-being as people, as
Right.
humans, not as academic gurus or not as scholars, but as humans.
Right.
How are students' feelings as human? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's necessary. And so those are the type of things that I truly fight for and just talk about on a daily basis and consistent basis to ensure that, that people are just feeling like people. And it's so hard for some people to understand that, but it's important in this education landscape.
Absolutely. And then sometimes the kids don't even know how to navigate that space. How am I actually supposed to be a kid? I'm yelled at to get up. I'm yelled at to get on the bus. I'm yelled at to get here. And I don't know what to do with any of this information, which also makes me think about now, even in the tech world, and all these people that have specialties. I mean, these are people that get paid $200,000. They are accompanied by people who have interpersonal skills. So I know how to talk to someone. I know how to navigate this. I can help you with that. I have conflict resolution. I have SEL skills. I have agility skills, all of that. So like it's not just, and I think there's such a big gap between the job market, the jobs people are getting that are actually paying what they're worth, and what we're doing in the schoolhouse. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, these kids need social skills, and these tech companies are literally paying people that have social skills $100,000 to help someone that has $200,000 in their payment, because everyone's so specialized now. And that's a whole nother soapbox, but I just wanted to, go ahead and say that. So let's get to your actual transition. So in this role, you sound very versed and you know the metrics and all this information, but at one point you were still a student. So walk us through kind of that transition from I have my JD, I've taught a little bit. Do I want to teach for the rest of my life? What did that jump look like?
Yeah, so for me, like I knew that there was, and there were in the perfect world, there was an intersectionality between having a JD, having education experience, and voila, education policy was like the brainchild. So in my mind, like it was working, like it
Yeah.
made sense. But the reality of it was that so much had to happen for that to be a reality that I was like, okay, it's making sense in my mind, but like in action, I don't see the light. And so
Right.
what happened was I taught, I knew education was where I wanted to be. I absolutely loved education. I love my kids. Like
Yeah.
probably some would say
Y'all
I like,
turning up in there. I'm like,
like my
hey.
classroom was lit. Like I really loved my job. So I knew education was where I wanted to be, but I also knew that there was greater impact for me to have on the collective community and the collective, like just in general education. So I took an internship for the Department of Education. We were in a policy meeting. I asked a question about like, oh, how many of you have taught before? And maybe me and one other person were, was like, oh yeah, I taught before. So you have all of these people in these high places making decisions for teachers inside of classrooms, excuse me, and they never step foot in a classroom. And I was like, that's a problem. Like that's
Yeah, on
problematic.
the
Like
board and all that.
on the board, in the policy room, at the department, making all of these decisions about what they believe to be true and have no
Right.
experience. And it's one thing to not have experience in the area, but you also need to, like, if you don't have experience, be intentional about your actions. So like spend a lot more time in schoolhouses. Like instead of being in an
Right,
office
yeah,
building,
exactly. Develop your
like be
empathy
there,
or something.
be in the element.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, there's so much more that I need to do. So I went back to my classroom, did that little thing for a while, worked in different nonprofit sectors, like who still interface with schooling, mental health counseling, all of those things that still were like embedded in schools. And then I was like, you know what? I still need to figure out how to get on the policy side of this work. So I ran for office first.
Mhm.
While running for office, I was still working for a nonprofit. My office was actually inside of a middle school in North Baton Rouge. And you could just see the conditions playing out for students that someone needed to care and be a voice for them. So I decided to ran for office, became the youngest elected school board member ever elected in the city of Baton Rouge, was elected
Ooh,
vice
that's a
president.
bar. That's a bar. Yes,
You
congrats.
know,
I know that.
thank you. was elected the youngest vice president within like a week, served as as the vice president for 2 years. And so just instantly just like transition and shift. And so then this opportunity came up where I work for now, what for the organization I work for now. And it's just been like, moving, and I've been blessed to really be in front of like a lot of opportunities to really help people understand like the reality of situations and help navigate, to the best of my abilities. I don't always get it right, but every single day I wake up and I get to fight for students who I love and I care about. Like for our school, like over these last couple of months, it's been really tough. We've lost a lot of students over the last year, really. And so
Oh, you're just talking
just
about in schools overall?
in schools overall, and for the school that we came from, at
Okay.
Kenilworth, like we've lost a lot of students to violence, to all of these different things. So it's
Oh,
just so
yeah.
much like to do within these spaces, and I'm just blessed to have the opportunity through the good, bad, and ugly to be in a
Right.
space to provide insight and impact to the education ecosystem. I love it. And I couldn't imagine my life being here though without teaching. So teaching does not have to be your end. You can always like figure out ways to make an additional impact because of your foundation of teaching.
Awesome. Because I was just about to ask, were there any moments of uncertainty as you were transitioning from the classroom? Because people see the end result, right? Oh, I'm vice president of this and this happened and I'm young and I've accomplished all of this. But walk us through that journey, trying to make it over to the other side, figuring out your purpose, the emotions that you dealt with. Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, for to be honest, I really there was a lot of times. It probably was a 2-year time frame in the time from the time I left my classroom, maybe a year and a half. From the time that I left my classroom, I have been applying for opportunities, and I mean, so many doors have been closed in my face. And I was like, Lord, I know, like in my mind, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but it just doesn't like the math not math. And so, like,
Right.
what's going on? And it takes steadfast persistence, consistency, and just the belief in yourself. Like there were many
Yep.
nights when I could have listened to the naysayers who say you should have did this way, you shouldn't have did this, and I would have been just lost. But I had
Confused,
to
trying to listen to everybody.
try to listen to everybody, but you have to have a self gut check with yourself and
Yeah.
decide this is where I want to be. I know what it takes to get there, and now I just have to put in the work to get there. And so, for every door that was closed in my face, there was
Mhm.
always another one somewhere. I may have not seen the other door that was opening for me, but for every closed door, there was an open door. And at the end of the day, you only need access to one. You only
Right.
need one door to open for you, and you can build whatever you want from that door. And I was thankful for that year and a half that I was applying for jobs and just taking jobs. I was like, I know there's more. I know there's more. I know
Yeah.
there's more. And I just kept knocking, and eventually a door opened, and I blossomed in that door. And so
Right.
my encouragement, my words to folks who are trying to or thinking about a teaching transition, you have to have faith in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, because there are going to be so many people who tell you that you don't make what you're trying to do doesn't make sense. There is no room for that. There's no opportunities for that. But I'm telling you, believe in yourself, get a vision, make it plain, write it down, and live in that. And that's what I
Right.
did. And I lived in it. And for a year and a half, I lived in it by myself. Like I lived in it by myself because people didn't understand what I had in my mind. So I
Yeah.
lived in it by
That's
myself.
that visionary. It's almost
And I
like you almost feel insane, like y'all not seeing it. Like, come see it.
no, and that's really what it was. I was like, I see this, and that you get a quality support system of people who believe in you, and no
Yeah.
matter what, just tell you keep working hard. But like at many nights, like stuff is gonna be moving in that vision, and you're gonna see that vision. And I told people when I
Right.
was in law school, I said, y'all, I'm gonna work in education policy, and this is how I'm going to do it. And people was like, you need to go do this, and then I'm like, no, I know what I want to do. And so I went to dinner with one of my classmates last week while I was in Atlanta, and we was like, it's so crazy that all the things that we said we would do while we were in law school,
Wow.
5 years later, are now literally the like how we're living our life. And so you got to start speaking over your life, speak growth, and speak
Yes.
transition if that's what
Manifest
you want in your
it.
life. Manifest it, and manifestation is real. And I firmly believe that I started manifesting this well before I can see any of it come to pass. And I graduated from law school 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, I had no idea this is where I wanted to be, but I kept saying, this is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to be. And God blessed me, and this is what it is. And so I'm appreciative and thankful for the opportunity.
Awesome. That is a good journey, just knowing that whatever people are hoping to go out and do, it's gonna take a minute, and it's gonna take a lot of time, you talking to yourself, and building up that confidence, because you're not going to be able to do it, that next day. So as we are going to go ahead and wrap up, I want you to put this in context for the people tuning in. How long would you say, and this could even be, something you were working on in high school, just knowing that you wanted to work toward being, getting your JD or being in education. How long would you say it took for you to study to get to the role that you are now?
It's law school in itself was a journey. Let me just say it's 2021 now. I graduated from undergrad in 2011. So I would say 10 years of just steadfast patience, manifestation, trying different things out, taking different risks. Because every risk that I took did not pan out. Like like they all didn't pan out, but you just keep taking them. I tell people all the time, you keep planting seeds. You just keep planting seeds, no matter throughout your life. Just plant a seed, plant a seed. You may not see that seed blossom in the time that you want to, but if you keep planting, you keep watering, and you keep manifesting, that seed is going to eventually blossom and grow. And so that's what I did for 10 years of my life. I was figuring it out. I decided in 2011 that I was going to law school. I started law school in 2012, graduated from law school in 2015. After graduation, worked at my job for like a year, and then was like, this is not what I want to do. Started teaching. And that was in 2016. And here it is 2021. And I'm finally seeing all of the things that I worked for pan out and play out. And so it's going to take time. It's going to take patience. There was a time in my life throughout this transition for 6 months, I didn't have a job. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. I didn't know how, but I took the risk. And, sometimes people are going to look at you crazy, but you just have to take some risk. And life is about taking risks and believing in yourself to get back up if you fall, because you're going to fall. Like you best believe out of 10 years of manifesting this, I failed many times, but I just kept getting back up, and I just keep getting back up. Because even now, like I fall, I just keep getting back up.
Right.
And so, that song, Get Back Up Again, is a real thing. Like, just keep getting back up.
I was thinking the same thing.
Like, it's a real thing. You just got to keep getting back up. And I think, that I've been able to like see where my life was, like just year by year, just like, wow, that's where I was 5 years ago. Wow, this is where I am now. Wow, how did I make it 10 years ago? Like living off of the salary that I had, like, and wow, this is what it was blessed me with now. And like, how do I continue to do more and continue to manifest more? And so like, you just have to keep manifesting, keep praying, and keep believing. Like, belief is a real thing. And keep believing, keep working, and it'll happen. And I think find you a solid support system, find you a solid mentor, find you people who are speaking over your life. If you're the smartest person in your circle, find a new one. Like, you need to continue the manifestation of all of those things. And patience is a virtue.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Those are all the questions that I had for us today. Again, thank you for coming on for the second time. I promise it is recording right now. Thank you guys for tuning in to Teaching Transitions. This is your host, Netta Dowdell, and I'll see you next time.